was coined right here in Canada.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people don't. It was coined by another fellow Hungarian of mine, called János Szelye, S-E-L-Y-E, who was a physician and researcher who came to Canada in the early 20th century, just after the First World War, and he did his research on stress in the University of Montreal in Montreal. And he's the one that showed in the laboratory the impact of stress on diminishing the immune system, overgrowing the neurones and stress gland, and ulcerating the intestines. And he's the one that the word stress wasn't new, but the way he used it was new. He's the one that established it internationally. And the thing with stress is it's an essential response to life challenges. If you're confronting a threat, you better the stress response, which means you'll have activation of the nervous system in a good way, and this makes you more alert. You'll have more adrenaline, give you more energy and strength to fight back, more cortisol, that gives you more blood sugar to have energy for the challenge ahead. In the long term, that's a positive and necessary physiological response of all animals. In the long term, those same stress hormones, and this is something that my profession, the medical profession, I only actually understand and practice on, is that in the long term, those same stress hormones give you high blood pressure, constricted blood disorders, high risk of strokes and heart disease, failure bones, so you're not osteoporosis, suppress the immune system, helping you turn against you so you get autoimmune disease, make you depressed, put fat on your belly so that you have more of a risk of heart disease, turn on genes that can cause cancer, turns off genes that can protect you against cancer and cause inflammation in the body. So this is what we all bring on ourselves, and people don't realize how, because they're taking on these driven values of this culture, they're actually literally making themselves sick. And sometimes it takes an illness to wake people up, and I don't recommend that way of waking, but my God, it works that way very often. And there's something one of the Greek playwrights, Aeschylus, wrote in a play called Agamemnon, written 24 years ago. He said that the way that the gods created us, human beings, that we have to suffer into truth. We have to have pain and wake us up to reality. And unfortunately, too often it's the stresses that we impose on ourselves that then create pain, illness, dysfunction, that then wake us up. That maybe the way I'm living isn't the way I'm meant to live. But I don't hate it. I regret that that's how people have to wake up, but it often is. Certainly, I have to be dragged and screaming to the truth. I don't rather live there automatically.
Yeah, well, everyone here is obviously extremely proactive, committed, trying their best. They're self-aware, they want to do the work. If someone's sitting there right now and wondering, Gabo, I noticed stress early, I can see it's getting worse. What do I do? Where do I start? What should I be thinking about doing, changing, shifting? If I want to walk out of here tonight and I want to really prioritize this, because I don't want to end up with that long laundry list of pains in my life, what should I do? What would you say?
Well,
do a cold plunge. What did you say? What did you say?
Actually,
what?
I did mention the book I wrote called When the Body Says No. The whole point is that when you don't think of the body to say for you in the illness. In my most recent book that we discussed before, The Myth of Normal, there's actually a whole chapter on this, and when I say this simple question to the inquiry that you just made, for that person I would say, where in your life are you not saying no? And by that I mean, there's a no that wants to be said, but you're not saying because you're afraid of what the world will perceive you. You're afraid that people will not like you. You're afraid that people might be disappointed in you. Where's there no that your organism wants to say, but you're not saying it? Start with that. Where this week that I'm not saying no? Where today that I'm not saying no? And that usually happens in 2 saying no.
That's a great first question.
Yeah.
Everyone resonate with that? That idea of everyone not saying no? That resonates so strongly with me because I think you're spot on. We were talking about that in the first half. We were talking about that inner voice. That if you just sit and listen to it, but we're moving so fast, we're so busy that no can be really quiet. It's like this little whisper that's barely getting.
Well, a small, still voice of the Bible. And there's a related question as well, which comes later in the same exercise, you might say, which is where am I not saying yes? Because there were times in my life where I certainly created a little but I was too busy not saying no. Like there was no space for me to say yes to what I wanted to say yes to. So those two questions, where am I not saying no? Excuse me. I just came back from a 12-day speaking tour, so my voice is saying no. Yeah. I like to see you at the end of this trip. Those two questions.
After 50.
But those two little words, yes and no, they're crucial in people's lives. They're small little words in every language. They're very short little words. You know, German, nine, Hungarian, Russian, yet, you know, French, no. It's really short little words, but they're just decisive in people's lives. And it's very interesting. Those of you that are parents, what is the word that your kids start saying in one No. Put your shoes on. No. Anything. As a matter of fact, I had a friend, I told the story before, I had a friend called Harold. We were sort of Ben, and we were medical residents at the same time. This is decades ago, only 47 years ago. And Ben and Harold, the father says to his son Ben, who's 2 years old, Ben, do you want an apple? And Ben says, no, I want an apple. And what that's about is nature putting a barrier for the child behind which she can develop his own self. And before your yeses mean anything, you have to learn to say no. And in this society, we call that, stupidity. We call that terrible twos.
Terrible twos.
And it's perfectly natural. So we start with that word, and then we stifle it in people, and at age 45, they don't know how to say no.
It's so interesting because I feel like our mind convinces us, I don't know if you're like this as well, our mind convinces us that I can't say no.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I just couldn't. Like, if I started doing that, my life would just fall apart. I can't do it. Like, it's not possible. And our mind says, oh no, and I can't say yes to this because, so we almost kind of fool ourselves.
Well, we do, and the Buddha said 2,500 years ago, in so many almost in so many words, that with our minds we create the world. Now, if your mind lives in a world where you say no threatens you, then you're not going to say no. Now, what the Buddha didn't say is that, which is more modern psychology, is that before our minds create the world creates our minds. So, if you grew up in a family where you know wasn't respected, where it was seen as a sign of disrespect, disobedience, to be suppressed or punished, and your acceptance depended on your acquiescence, then you'll forget how to say no in order to protect yourself. So it starts off as an adaptation. Sometimes when I give my lectures, I play a song by Elvis Presley. Did you see that wonderful documentary about Presley called The Return of the King?
I haven't seen that one, but
Okay, it's wonderful. He goes through this phase where he sings terrible songs, where he gives up on his incredible charismatic energy and talent, and he just becomes a puppet in the hands of his manager. And then he does this combat concert, and he shows up on stage dressed like a god in leather clothing. He's the most beautiful man on earth, and he sings his raw, raucous, ribald, wonderful rock and roll, and he's fooling himself. he sings this song called Any Way You Want Me. That's the way I'll be. I'll be strong as a mountain, weak as a willow tree. I'll be anything that you want me to be. And that's how he ended up living his life. He ended up dying very young in very tragic circumstances. He's somebody whose raw genius was of world significance, and his energy was unbelievable. And he gave it all.
It's
And he paid a heavy price.
yeah, those stories, and when we have hindsight, can be so powerful for us.
Yeah.
Even if we're not living that life, or whatever it may be, they're so powerful for us to look back on. And tonight, I wanted to make this an extremely special experience because I want you to know just how deeply grateful I am that you're here today. And I've asked Dr. Gabo as my first guest if he was comfortable leading and guiding an individual who wanted to go through his compassionate inquiry personally in this seat up here tonight. And so if there's anyone who's going through something, feels like they've been held back, feel like they've been challenged, who wants to, before we take questions, would like to go through a process in front of the audience, he'd happily walk them through. So if you want to just raise your hand, I'll have them.
There were so many hands up at CIV.
Get going.